Welcome back, everybody, to Clearwater Jazz Holiday's Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. Tyler Wertman. What's up, man?
How you doing, Steve? Good to see you.
I'm doing really well. Thank you, Tyler. It's great to have you back with us on your topic today, developing your own personal sound on trombone, which is an instrument you know something about, right?
A little bit,
Yes.
just a little bit.
So we're really happy to have you back as part of these sessions. We are recording these sessions for the purposes of Clearwater Jazz Holiday education and outreach. As we do, participants are muted for the courtesy of the session, but if there are questions, we're going to get those questions to you through the chat feature, and I will help facilitate that. Thank you for everybody who is following along with this as we build this wonderful treasure of information. These sessions are all accessible at clearwaterjazz.com's education and outreach section. We archive all of the video after these live sessions, and you can also listen to them as part of the Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions podcast. The studio is where you find the videos. The podcast is where you listen. The studio is brought to you by our friends at Blue Water Wealth Management at Steward Partners and a new partner there, Duke Energy. And our podcast is brought to you by our friends at Marine Max Clearwater. Check them out. When you go there, you're going to see some of Tyler's past sessions, which are fantastic, and they include a basic trombone series, long tones and lip slurs, tonguing and articulation, major scale and arpeggios practice. They include scale pattern practice and alternate positions, scale mode applications, approaching a transcription, developing warm-up regimen, practice methods and helpful resources, an approach to improvisation, chord progressions, and turnaround practice on trombone. Man, Tyler, we've been busy.
I was just going to say, I love it, man. I love it.
We have been busy. Okay. And then today, of course, we have developing your own personal sound on trombone, which we're looking forward to. Tyler is really special to Clearwater Jazz Holiday education programs, not just these, but also our My Journey with Jazz program and History of Jazz outreach program. Tyler's a jazz trombonist and graduate and alumni of FSU and USF with a study focus on jazz performance. He's a composer, a performer, a producer. He's focused on jazz and classical styles. He performs with many groups and ensembles throughout the Tampa Bay area and beyond, and is currently adjunct instructor of music at Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers, Florida, and also teaching at University of Tampa here in our own backyard. So, Tyler, it's really great to have you back with us. I'm going to turn it over to you now. The stage is all yours.
Steve, thank you so much for everything that you do. Clearwater Jazz Holiday, Al Downing Jazz. These resources are pivotal, especially if you're upcoming in the jazz scene as a student. I know I wish I could have these resources growing up. So again, I thank you so much. And so, yeah, like you said, we've been busy. We've done a lot of discussing over how to practice the trombone, so to speak, how to approach scales, patterns, how to implement them with our listening, transcribing. Okay, but the one thing we really haven't talked about so far is developing our own personal sound. And I talk about this with many of my students, usually the more advanced students, because it's important that we still have a great foundation to build our sound and our approaches on. Okay, and that's very important. We're going to touch on that later. So again, finding your unique voice is something a lot of students are concerned about, trying to sound original. Right. And it is a legitimate concern, but we need to be careful in this search because in the process, we can sometimes make mistakes that instead of taking us forward into finding our sound can set us back. Right. And so some of these things that I hear from my students is, one is that they try to block out, or they will only listen to themselves. Okay. They might not listen to other musicians or other recordings. Okay. They're trying to, so to speak, isolate their music. Okay. And it can get very risky. Okay. If you ask a student, hey man, what have you been listening to in your solos? And if they give an answer that's, oh, no one really, because I want to sound like myself. That's not the answer we're looking for, right? We want to make sure that, the student is open to all of these recordings, not only for historical purposes, but for technical purposes. The technique on one's instrument developed through 100 years of playing is going to vary. So it's important to understand the early approaches to our instrument, just like the later and more modern approaches, right? And so again, it's really important for these students to be open to listen to as many different musicians, styles of music as possible, right? At least for me growing up, I wasn't always listening to jazz 24/7. You need to sort of branch out, explore, find some other music, go live a little bit and come back to this music, and it makes it more refreshing, right? At least it was for me. So remember, you need to know the past to innovate, okay? Another issue is that some students do not practice, their facility or technique on the instruments. They're sort of going for different sounds. And so, it's not smart to do this, right? Technique is just a tool. Okay. So I encourage all of my musicians and students to warm up in a classical manner, right? We always warm up with scales in different patterns, as we discussed, thirds, fourths, diatonic triads, diatonic seventh chords, okay, in inverted styles of these, okay, and it's good practice because, again, technique is a tool for your musical innovation. Okay. And it's students, people, and even older musicians, they want to try to innovate and paint something completely new, but they only have one paintbrush and one color, right? How can you really paint something new like that? Well, it's going to be really hard unless you are a true artist, right? But if you have multiple different types of brushes and multiple different types of colors, it can help this process. Right. And so, I'm kind of comparing these brushes and colors to different techniques at the musician's disposal. Okay. Whether that's a single tongue, double tongue, triple tongue, all of these, remember, technique is a tool. Okay. So, again, where can we find these great technical practices? Well, in Western classical music. Okay, this sound of especially brass, okay, can go all the way back to choir, if not church, right? Of these, the trumpets, right? That sound heralding bright and clear in the distance, right? So it already gives us an idea for tone here. So again, practicing classical music is not necessarily a bad thing, nor will it hinder your jazz or performance, right? Again, it's as if we are writing paper, right? If we're learning all these different techniques, we're learning different vocabulary, different grammar. And again, this can aid your writing process, your playing process. Now, something else that the students often tell me is that they're trying to find this sound, right? But they're not necessarily at a point yet where that foundation is stable enough to start this sound or this search. And so I experience this a lot, actually. I'll have students that are trying to do these things in their solos, and whether or not it's for a rhythmic standpoint or it's because there's something they're hearing and they're just trying to go for it, but it's not coming off. Okay. So what are you trying to do? We have to break it down. Okay. And we really need to isolate these ideas so we can build upon them. And it's not just randomness after randomness after randomness. So, it can be too soon of a start, too soon of a start for the search of original musical approaches or content. Okay, it takes time. It takes practice in order to develop your own sound. Okay, and there's things we can do to accelerate the process, such as listening. Okay, and by listening, I mean listening with intent. Okay, not just putting on a record and go vacuuming around the house and go wash the windows and do the dishes. And that was a good record. I really enjoyed that record. That was a good record to hang out to. No, we really need to again listen with intent. Okay, one tool that we can do while we listen to help us think this way is, instead of listening for the notes that a musician is playing, listen for the rests or the moments where they're not playing in their solos or their melodies. Okay, that often can tell you more about a person's improvisational style or personal playing than the notes that they are playing. Okay, space is the place, and if you provide more space in your solos, it'll make the notes or phrases that you've played stand out more, right? And it will help you connect your phrases as well, because when we're not playing, what are we doing? We're listening to the rhythm section. We're assessing what we have played. We're feeling that time, that pocket, and we're thinking about what to play next. If we're just playing all these lines and this material and these scale patterns and these arpeggios, that's not going to give us time for that breath, for that music to sit in and for us to start our next idea, right? And again, that's just talking about space. And now, so you find out there's, okay, well, I love Miles Davis on Kind of Blue. Well, he uses a good amount of space on that record, right? But it helps his phrases swing and stand out. And it really pushed that record to be the #1 selling record in jazz in all of America. It still is to this day as well. Now, so don't worry too much about developing your sound as much as, worry about developing our technique, our interpretations, okay, our understanding of our instrument throughout history. That all of these things will give us more approaches to our music, whether that's in taking a solo or if that's playing a melody, whether it's playing background for a symphony or playing background for a single vocalist. Okay, all of these situations are going to help you become a better performer. Now, for instance, when we play and when we first learn scales on the trombone, they teach our major scales, teach you our major scales first, and then they have us learn our arpeggios. And I think scales and arpeggios are a great gateway into soloing here, because on the trombone, I can't play chords. You could do multiphonics and play 2 notes at the same time, or play 1 note, hum another note. But that's not what I'm talking about here. Like on piano, you can play the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th, the 9th, all of these extensions. On the trombone, we are limited to 1 single note at a time. So this is important for a few different reasons. One, if we want to navigate over a chord, we need to know the chord scale relationship of this chord. And also we need to understand the arpeggio with it. So we know what the third is, what the fifth is, what the seventh is, what the ninth is doing, what the 11 is doing. And all of these alterations, through this chord will help us influence our harmonic decisions. Okay, so I'm not going to demonstrate anything complicated. Okay, I'm just talking about triads right now. So in B flat major, our B flat major triad are these four notes: 1, 3, 5, 1. Very simple, okay? But then, oftentimes students will just leave these triads and not invert them or try anything to explore their own personal sound. And that was pretty much just the triad, right? And then so by studying different scales, we can maybe change our third down 1/2 step to now have a minor triad. So that minor triad will sound like this. Okay, it's a little darker. It's a bit sadder. So if we play these same ideas with this just third slightly changed, we get a whole different sound now. So it's not as happy. And I did incorporate some blues in there as well, but it was more minor, right? And that's just with the alteration of one note. So with one note, you can really change your entire approach to what you're playing. Okay, but let's think about what I did there, right? I came from a very simple point, which was our major triad. From there, I just explored the triad through my instrument, trying different phrases, right? I tried going from the bottom up, I tried going from the top down. And maybe then you can try to explore something that is very closely related, so we don't have to change everything at once. We can make slight differences and hear those differences, or that difference in sound, should I say. So changing that third, that major third to a minor third, we were able to sort of solo over this more minor key area, using a lot of these similar triad ideas. Again, one was using the major triad and one was using the minor triad. So for me, exploring my personal sound does deal with technique, right? Because I do need to know where these notes lie on my instrument. I need to know the tuning of these notes, different articulations, right? Some of the notes that I was approaching were slurred, or some of them had bends, some of them had scoops, but then some of them were directly articulated. Some of them were staccato. Again, this goes with technique, right? Practicing your scales, warming up with long tones, lip slurs. If you guys need ideas on what to warm up or what to play when warming up, check the Clearwater Jazz holiday / education website for our warm-up video that we had. So in that video, I actually talked about using our warm-ups in our solos, or using materials that we use in our warm-ups and our solos. Okay, and major scales and arpeggios should be one of those things that we do at the end of our warm-ups every single day before we begin our intensive playing. So again, just be aware, guys. Don't isolate yourself when trying to develop your own sound. Okay, we understand you don't want to sound like anybody else, but guess what? In order to do that, you have to understand not only where your instrument came from, but your instrument's sound. Okay. Also, we have to practice technique, right? Technique is a tool. And with these tools, it will help us perform and play jazz and improvisation as well. And again, just don't begin the search, so to speak, too soon. I see a lot of students, like I said, they don't have that foundation necessary to begin their own personal styles. And that's not to say that guys can't mess around with different arpeggios or scales, but really, concentrate and isolate what it is you're trying to work on when developing, quote unquote, your sound, right? Is it your tone? Is it your ideas? Okay. Is it how fast you can play? Is it how lyrical you can play? There's so many things when dealing with your own sound. It's important to sort of get an idea of where to approach these things and then how to tackle them. And remember, it's easy to compare yourself to other musicians as well. I think that was told to me at a very, very young age. But we all come from different backgrounds, different understandings of music. Okay, so how I learn something and how quickly or how long it takes me to learn something might not be the same for you. Okay, and that, how I play just using a triad is going to be different to how you play just using a triad. And that's fine. That's great, because our sounds are supposed to be different, right? And that's just this beautiful process, right? We're all just trying to decide which styles of music we're trying to go deeper in. So, Steve, I think that's everything I have.
Sorry, I was fumbling around with my mute button. It took me a while to get back. Man, that was another great one, Tyler. Thank you so much, man.
Absolutely. I know it was a lot. I try to keep it concise. But no, it's all about, searching during the practice and just enjoying the process while you're doing it.
No, some really, really great advice, and I'm looking forward to others down the road seeing and watching this video and the others that you have done, and also excited about inviting you to come back. I know we were talking just before this session about some other fun ideas, and it's just always really wonderful having you with us.
Thank you, Steve. I love it. You know that. I wish I could be here every day of the week, man.
We're working on that. All right. So everybody who's been following along, thank you so much for your support of Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation and finding value in these really cool resources. And Tyler, on behalf of everyone, thank you. Stay safe, everyone out there. Be well. Keep playing, and we'll see you real soon.
See ya.